What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have an exciting one. We are installing the PSC high pressure or high volume, whatever you want to call it, power steering pump. So as you know, back last year I installed the big bore steering box, which has helped tremendously, but it has definitely overworked my stock steering pump. So definitely time to do this upgrade. Let's take a look at what we got here. So as you can see, minus the wrench here, we got everything. We got the huge reservoir. I mean, this is so much bigger than the original that's in there now. I'll have to do a comparison, but everything is here. The new kit that they have includes everything, so you can't just buy the pump with the lines now. You can buy a replacement pump, but not like as a kit for a new setup. So you kind of have to go with the whole entire kit, which I kind of like because it helps to avoid any warranty issues or anything like that. So for time constraint issues, I went ahead and took off most of the stock stuff already. So right now I'm gonna start getting the new stuff on, and I'll take you along with me. All right, guys, we just got the old power steering pump out of there with all the lines. It was kind of tough, won't lie. You have to cut the old lines to get them to fit through because they're kind of maneuvered through the whole engine bay down here. So that was the hardest part, was getting all that disconnected. The power steering pump down here, it's just 13mm bolts. There's two up top, one at the bottom. If you take off the wheel, it is super easy to access them right here. So that's not a problem at all. I did take the alternator off as well, just for better access, and also took off the belt. They do give a new belt with the kit, so you want to disconnect the two 18mm connections to the power steering pump or power steering box, and then once you do that, time to put the new stuff in. All right, guys, here's where we're at so far. We got the reservoir on here with the tightened up anti-splash valve here. That's all good. You put a spacer right here and then put your 10mm bolt in, which is pretty easy. Of course, make your connections here. If you read the PSC instructions, they're very, very, very clear. And then we just now got the new pump in. Actually went fairly smoothly. Just make sure you use Loctite on the bracket bolts. Of course, not on the mounting bolts, but on the bracket bolts for sure. But everything's in there good. Now we're gonna move on to getting the lines in here, which is probably gonna be a little fun, but shouldn't be too bad. I'm excited to get this all in here and good to go. This reservoir is massive, and you will have to kind of adjust it just a little bit so it isn't hitting your radiator cap. I just kept pulling it back a little bit, and it kind of bent the bracket to where it was good to go. All right, guys, sadly I had to go do some family stuff, so I wasn't able to film the whole install here. But what I did, got the reservoir on with the anti-splash valve over here, which was super easy. They have a little slide on little nut you can use there, so it's super easy to install that. The only issue I'm having right now is I got the belt on. The belt was a total you-know-what to get on there, but it does work. I'm a little bit worried here about the air box because it's not all the way down. It seems like it's gonna work with the hood, but I may have to do a cold air intake to be able to work this because I don't think it's gonna fit. But that's the only issue I've had so far. So right now I'm gonna button this up and start the bleeding process. All right, guys, we are back. Sorry I wasn't able to get all of the install filmed. It's been kind of a whirlwind the last few days fitting this in with weekend stuff and everything. So kind of had to work on this without videoing for most of it. But we do have the finished product together. So let me go ahead and show you. So we got the cooler installed. It looks super cool inside the grill here. So very happy about that. Got these routed. It is kind of tough to get them routed through here. I will give you just a forewarning. It is kind of tight. You will cut up your hands a little bit getting them through there. I was able to route it. This is the hardest side right here because you have to go around these radiator lines here, which is kind of a you-know-what. But once you get it all installed, it actually all comes together really nicely. You do have to drill out the holes, of course, to mount the cooler. It's a I think it's a 1/4 inch drill bit, if I remember correctly. But even if you're close to that, it should work pretty well. So we got that installed. Anti-splash valve, got that all mounted right here. What's really nice about this is the line that goes to the reservoir goes really nicely underneath this piece here. So then you have the reservoir right here. Now, one little tip here. If you want to use the stock air box, you will have to cut it. So this is not seated all the way down. As you can see, it does work right now with the hood shut. But I do have a cold air intake on the way to fix this issue. So just something to keep in mind. This reservoir is too big here. with this mounted the way it is right now, I can't even get the lid open. So the cold air intake will be necessary because I do not want to cut the stock box. If I cut it, I might as well just get a new intake. So that's what I'll be getting. It should be here this week. But this reservoir, very, very impressed with the size and quality of this reservoir and all of the pieces, really. The pump went together really nicely. So everything installed super easy for the most part. It was all labeled and spelled out, pretty easy. So if you're intimidated by all of this with the install, do not be. Trust me, it's really not that bad. Auto Edits Jason did do a really nice video on like kind of the full install. So if you're looking for a little bit more info on that, his video is a little bit more informative than mine's going to be as far as the install goes. But one thing I will say, after driving this thing with the new pump, reservoir, and cooler on there, night and day difference for real. Like, I thought the steering box was an upgrade. Once I put this on, it is smooth as can be. So that stock pump must have been just really underpowered. They do recommend, of course, you get the full kit. I think that's why they sell it the way they do all together now, is so that it doesn't void any warranty issues or damage any parts. But I will recommend, if you are going to go with the big bore box, I would just go ahead and get the full kit all at once. That way you don't damage the steering box with the stock pump, because it can happen. So you got to be very careful if you're going to do that. Having it all together now, I am extremely happy with this setup. If I could do it again, I would get it all at once and just get it all installed all at once. But shout out to PSC. I'm very impressed by the instructions on this. Everything was so laid out, so easy to install. Everything was pre-cut. You didn't have to cut or modify anything, minus the air box, which I say you can make it fit. I'm not sure if it's just something with my Jeep, but I'm not willing to mess with a stock air box, so I just went ahead and ordered the cold air. But I'm very impressed with all of this, the way it came together. So also shout out to PSC for the awesome hat as well as the really cool shirt. Very happy with that as well, guys. I really appreciate that. PSC has some really great customer service, so if you ever need to reach out to them, their website, Instagram, also their email is all on their website, so you can reach them right through there, and they're really quick to respond to any questions. You can also call them too. I believe their number is on Facebook. I'm not 100% sure of that. I only went through email. But very impressed with PSC as a whole. Great company, great people, great product. I am very impressed by this whole setup. I would highly recommend the big bore box and the full steering reservoir, pump, and cooler. I'd highly recommend it all to you guys if you're off-roading with big tires. It has made a huge difference with my Jeep, and I am very, very happy with it. Also, I did not do a video on the bleeding process for the power steering just because it's a little bit complex and it's very time consuming. But I'll give you kind of a run through of what I did. So what I did is I, of course, took the cap off of the power steering reservoir. I did jack up the front of the Jeep, put it on jack stands, and I just moved the steering wheel full lock to full lock probably about 5 or 6 times. Now every single time, every single half turn, I'm checking the reservoir to make sure there's still fluid in there, because it's going to push that fluid all throughout the system. So you want to make sure, especially if you're installing the steering box at the same time, it's going to have to fill up that whole steering box as well. So it's going to take a few different quarts to get that thing going. So that's what I did. Dry steer it while it's jacked up probably about 5 or 6 times. Then I actually started up the Jeep, let it run through the system, and I only started it for about maybe 10 seconds and then I turned it off. Starting it makes the pump go, so it sucks all the fluids down, so you want to make sure that you check the reservoir after you turn it on the first time. Once I saw I got the fluid level right once it was off, turned it back on, and I turned it full lock to full lock with the Jeep on. Did that about 5 or 6 times as well. Check the fluid, and then another 5 or 6 times, because you want to get all of that air out of the system. So as long as you're still seeing bubbles come up, you should still be turning that steering wheel. It's nice to have a second person to do that, because then you can actually kind of see it while they're turning the wheel. But that's kind of the gist of it, guys. It's actually a super simple process, and there's a few videos on YouTube about it if you want to watch more in depth about it. And another question I'm sure I'm going to get is, why didn't I go full hydro assist with the RAM and everything? Really the main reason for me is money. I do not have a ton of money to throw at my Jeep. This was just something I really needed to do off-road with those big 37s and the bead locks as heavy as they are. This is something that I believe is a huge benefit if you're doing at least once a month off-roading and rock crawling. It's going to make a huge difference in your steering, as well as it's going to add a ton of strength to your system. So that was a big thing for me as well. I didn't want to be off-road and shear off the sector shaft, which you can still do with the PSC, but it's a lot harder to do with that. So that's the main reason that I kind of stuck with just the regular adventure kit versus the full hydro. It saves you about $1,000. So if you have more money to throw at it, that's great. If I had 40s, I probably would go full hydro assist, but I plan on staying a 38 or below with this build. So I don't plan on going up to 40s anytime soon. So I'm very happy with the PSC kit, the Adventure kit, of course, with just 37s. It turns it just fine, does a great job, and it keeps it cool as well. That's a big thing, because I know with the stock systems, it can overheat the fluid super easy, and then it starts spewing everywhere. But yeah, the Adventure kit is a huge upgrade for 38s or below. I know on their website they say 35s or below, but honestly, it does really well with 37 for me. So I'd highly recommend it to anyone that's on 37s or 38s as well. Alright guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for today's video. I am going to have another video out later this week once I get the cold air intake installed. I did get a RIP one. I'm very happy about that. It looks like it leaves a lot of space in the engine bay here. So the RIP one actually leaves this whole little area here open, but also has the intake right here. So really excited about that. I should have that video coming out this week. But if you have any questions, please drop them down below, guys. If you have any questions about the install, you can also go to PSC's website. They have the full install instructions on there. But please like and subscribe for more Jeep and off-road content, guys, and I really appreciate you watching.